and comment on any major shifts from what might have been discussed in the past in front of the board. Then what we would like from the board would be direction as to what you would like us to bring back, and then we can indicate the time frame. There's also been some discussion that the inclusionary housing ordinance has morphed quite a bit over the last several years, and there may be a sense that we should renew the discussion with the Planning Commission, and we're certainly prepared to do that if the board thinks that would be useful. So, but I also want to recognize there's a great deal of staff work that's been done. It's all been researched, up one side and down the other, and so it's a matter of picking options at this point and not going back to, you know, square one. So, Diana.
Good morning, Supervisors. Diana Hershey from the planning team. I just want to go over, there are actually two ordinances in your packet. One is a section that adds definitions for affordable housing and household and things of that nature, which is not very controversial. The second ordinance is the chapter that adds a chapter on inclusionary housing. There's been some discussion with the Planning and Building Services staff this week that indicates at the top of the ordinance, it actually has a statement that we wanted to amend the Planning and Building Services fee structure to allow for waiver of fee for affordable units. And Planning and Building Services has some concerns that with the financial situation as it is in the county at this point, to allow as an option a developer to have no fees, planning and permit fees, could be a problem for the county financially at this point in time. So I just wanted to make sure that got voiced to you, that they do have concerns about that. Starting on page 4 of 14, there's the section, the beginning sections are some findings that just talking about what's important for the ordinance. The 414, the purpose section, it just talks about why we're doing this and why it's important with for the housing element and other things of that nature. Applicability, this section, there was quite a bit of debate in our two stakeholder groups and group meetings of when this ordinance should be applicable. Originally, the housing advocates had wanted it to apply to all building within the county because many of the units that are built here, most of them in fact, are below 5 units or less. In our discussions back and forth, several of the housing advocates stated that they could live with 10 units or above, and the housing providers were fine with that too. So this again has been a negotiated compromise between two stakeholder groups for applicability to 10 units or less, or more, sorry. The next section is unit requirement. Again, this was another debate among the two stakeholder groups that were compromised on starting at 10, and that 10 to 25 units would be 10% affordable, 26 to 50 units would be 15% affordable, 51 to 75 would be 20%, and 76 or more units would be 25% affordable. The next section below that on page 6 of 14 is the affordable housing standards, and this is the red line version. I'm reading it out of the finished version. Okay. The reason that I'm working on the finished version is that it includes all the...
We're assuming here that it's...
Well, I have the red line
versions.
Yeah. we
You
have-
should have both
yeah.
versions in
Oh.
your packet. The red
Okay.
line comes first,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
and the reason for that is that we wanted to show the changes that were actually made as per board
well, on
direction.
6 of 14 and on, there's no red lines, we're assuming.
No,
the way
that's
it
the,
is.
that's the
right.
completed ordinance, yes. Sorry about the confusion. Okay, we discussed standards. The change was made for, the board had made some direction about wanting comparable market rate units. The quality of construction was to be comparable to market rate. There was originally in the red line version some discussion about appearance, which the board directed to have taken out, so it does not appear in this version. And again, the size of units for various affordable housing was negotiated between the two groups. Each group came forward with their ideal size that they wanted, and then it was negotiated back and forth between them to something that could be acceptable to both. Page 7 of 14, it talks about inclusionary housing credits. About how developers or providers could have credit if they're building a development that has room for more inclusionary units, they could put them on that project and then get a credit for other projects that they would go forward later. And so that's in that section. Alternatives. The developer can propose different alternatives, which would be discussed back and forth through a development agreement. And they could propose something like another piece of property that could be donated, or, so sometimes it's not practical to build the inclusionary units on site. Perhaps it's a subdivision on a hillside, and so the cost of foundations and roads and things like that would be much greater in that sort of subdivision. So affordable houses would not be easily put in that development. But a developer could propose, if they have another piece of property which is flatter, that they would donate for affordable housing in a different area. That would be more conductive to actually producing affordable units, and those kinds of alternatives are acceptable. The next section down is a discussion of the in lieu fees. Our research indicates that in lieu fees are actually necessary legally. We must offer the developer the option of paying an in lieu fee, at least for fractional units, and probably for just in general. And what that is, again, it's so that if they are in a situation where they cannot build affordable units for a financial reason or for some other reason, then they have the option to pay the fee. This is the section that was originally discussed between the two groups. There was, in the housing advocates' original proposal, there was quite a complicated formula for how it would be applied. Between the negotiations between the two stakeholder groups, they had agreed upon a 10% fee would be acceptable to both. The board thought that that was too high, and so they asked us to lower it to 2%, and you can see that that change has been made. The incentive section just talks about number of units of affordable housing and how many incentives go with how many units are being provided. Also talks about different incentives that are available for the developer to request, and a detailed